Hi, and welcome to the Digital Digging YouTube channel. In this video we'll be looking at the Typhoon Mark 1A, both in history and in the game of War Thunder. The design for the Typhoon, which began in 1937, was overseen by Sidney Camp, Hawker's chief designer and the mind behind the extremely successful Hurricane. Like the Hurricane, the Typhoon was based around a very sturdy wing which could act as a stable gun platform. However, unlike the Hurricane, the development of the Typhoon 1A was plagued by dangerous and sometimes downright lethal design flaws. The aircraft went into service in September 1941, and to emphasise the potential difficulties you might encounter shortly after the delivery of your brand new shiny Typhoon 1A, let's go through the takeoff procedure step by step. Step 1. Getting in and out. This involved negotiating the universally despised car door arrangement, which on the ground was merely difficult and awkward, but in the air and travelling at speed became a real life or death challenge. Step 2. Starting the engine. The pilot had to be very precise about setting the throttle, or else the carburetors were likely to flood with 130 octane fuel and catch fire. Ignition was achieved or attempted by discharging something along the lines of a shotgun cartridge, which would rotate the enormous propeller through roughly 450 degrees. If you were unsuccessful on the first go, there was an 80% chance of it catching fire on the next attempt. During this process, you were obliged to wear an oxygen mask because the cockpit would immediately fill up with carbon dioxide. You would of course have to wear this throughout the whole flight unless you had to leave in a hurry through the car door arrangement due to the rear half of your fuselage falling off without warning, which was also a risk. Step 3. Takeoff. This was ideally performed as rapidly as possible as the engine was apt to heat up very quickly. Keeping that in mind, after taxiing, you nonetheless had to run the engine up to 3000 RPM whilst in the hold position just to clear the cylinders. The massive propeller, driven by the mighty and mightily unreliable Napier Sabre engine, generated enormous amounts of torque, so that on takeoff the aircraft would veer violently to the right regardless of how hard you would depress the rudder pedal left, the rudder being all you had until the ailerons began to respond at around 93 miles per hour or 149 kilometers per hour. Once in the air, if the Napier Sabre engine was behaving, the fuselage had stayed in one piece and the controls hadn't succumbed to a playful little kink known as aileron reversal, which is as pant-wettingly frightening as it sounds. The Typhoon was a spectacularly powerful aircraft, achieving speeds in excess of 400 miles per hour or 643 kilometers per hour at sea level. If your engine should seize up, however, as it was wont to do on occasion, then, in the words of Squadron Leader Des Scott of the Royal New Zealand Air Force, it had the gliding angle of a 7-ton brick, and in a forced landing it was apt to somersault and either crush the pilot or explode. And though the wings did indeed prove to be a stable gun platform, the guns they supported, 12 7.7mm Brownings, were quickly being supplanted by 20mm cannon in the aircraft it was designed to compete against. Most of these teething troubles were smoothed out over time, resulting in the Typhoon 1B, a similarly terrifying aircraft, but this time for many of the right reasons. In the game, the Typhoon 1A is a Tier 2 aircraft with a battle rating of 2.7. It has a maximum speed of 425 miles per hour or 685 kilometers per hour and a turn time of 18.6 seconds. It's armed with 12 7.7mm Browning machine guns with 3,600 rounds of ammunition, has a reload time of 15 seconds and can carry up to 1,000 pounds or 453 kilos in bombs. And while 12 7.7 Brownings seem like a lot, keep in mind that's exactly what the Hurricane Mark 2B has, and judge from that. You do have a generous amount of ammunition, however, and the 15-second reload time is pretty much over before you know it. And although this aircraft isn't entirely un-brick-like under certain conditions, if you learn to fly it properly, you can certainly knock lesser aircraft out of the sky. It does, however, fall between two stools as a fighter. The 7.7s don't pack enough punch for booming and zooming anything but the lighter targets, and the less than stellar manoeuvrability puts you at a disadvantage in a turn fight. It can take a pounding though, and that 1,000 pound or 453 kilo bomb load shouldn't be ignored either. Right, that's it for another video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to keep abreast of new uploads, then I can recommend subscribing to the channel. It's free, and if you curse your impetuous button pushing later on in the evening, your decision is also very easy to reverse. Okay, cheerio chaps, take care, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.